So the science of mindfulness. Mindfulness is rooted in Eastern traditions such as Buddhism, but at this point, there's a plethora of research about how mindfulness can impact how the positive impacts across multiple contexts, including healthcare, psychology, business, education, and now even vet med. And research has found that practicing mindfulness consistently, even just 5 minutes a day, can help reduce anxiety and depression and also build resiliency. And so there's two areas of the science of mindfulness that I want to share with you today in this webinar. And the first one is the neuroscience behind mindfulness, because I've found this really interesting. So as you know, the amygdala is responsible for kind of that response or reaction to something that might be fear inducing or it's kind of the fight, flight, or freeze response, right? Whereas the prefrontal cortex can help mitigate the amygdala's reaction to whatever the trigger might be, whether that's an email or a conversation with a colleague or a really sick patient or just your own emotions, whatever it might be. And the prefrontal cortex helps with decision-making and awareness and focus and also overall regulation of emotion. So a helpful mindfulness research has shown that with consistent practice, that the amygdala, that flight, fight, or freeze response actually reduces in size, whereas the prefrontal cortex becomes thicker and expands. And a helpful model for this comes from Dr. Dan Siegel, who's a well-known writer and neuroscientist. And so if you want to try it with me, you can, you don't have to. The idea is that the thumb is your amygdala, and these four fingers are your prefrontal cortex. So you can think about something that might trigger you, whether that's a tough case or an interaction or a really long day, whatever it might be, big or small, and your amygdala starts to respond, and then your prefrontal cortex comes back online and can help soothe that response that's happening. And so when you're doing mindfulness and you're practicing the art of strengthening that prefrontal cortex so that you can respond to the world in the way that you want to, as opposed to reacting and staying in that reaction mode. That for me is just really powerful and something for me to think about as a person and as a parent. The second piece of science that I wanted to share with you is about neuroplasticity. So historically, it's been thought that what we're born with in terms of our brain is what it is, and it's never going to change, and that's just what we've got. And in reality, we've got a ton of research, especially with MRI-based data, on how our brains change with every experience that we have, that our brains are constantly reshaping, and that our thoughts and our behaviors and our activities can actually reshape our brain. So for example, my husband about a year ago started learning how to play the ukulele by watching YouTube videos, and now he's quite skilled at it. And I have no doubt that that's reshaped his brain in various ways. There's also research on cab drivers in London and how spatial reasoning parts of their brain have strengthened and grown as they before they started learning the streets of London and then after they finished that. So a lot of examples of how we're literally reshaping our brain. And we can use that knowledge to focus on positive thoughts and influence the changes that take place in our brain. And at this point, there's research even coming out of the Center for Healthy Minds at University of Wisconsin-Madison showing that just like we know we need physical exercise and how beneficial that can be, that doing mindfulness practices can also be part of our daily or weekly routines, because that consistency can help build resiliency and also positivity.